Hello, this is Paul Nelson with Western's Board Floors, Wyoming Wood Floors, coming to you today from Clinton, Montana. Today we're going to talk about inflation. This is an issue that affects everybody. It affects contractors. It affects everyone. But we're going to talk about, as a contractor, some strategies for how you might go about dealing with inflation. What is inflation? Basically, inflation is a devaluation of your dollar. Right now, according to the government, we are experiencing about 8.5% or 9% inflation. So just to put that in perspective, today, this dollar is worth $1. Next year at this time, this dollar is worth 90 cents. Next year at this time, this dollar is worth 80 cents, and so on and so forth. This happens because our currency has been debased, and I don't mean to go into economics or politics in this video. And many administrations, both Republican and Democrat, have debased our currency at some level. The challenge that we're facing right now in the United States is that the current administration has debased our currency on an industrial scale that has affected everybody. It is very much, inflation is a tax. Think about inflation as a tax. So in addition to property taxes and income taxes and self-employment taxes and Social Security taxes, Medicare taxes, unemployment taxes, automobile taxes, and the list goes on, we are now saddled with an additional 9% tax. Everybody in our country is paying approximately 9% a year in an inflation tax. The Federal Reserve is the organization that is tasked by the U.S. federal government with creating our money and our monetary policy. And by their own admission, they have been printing money. Unfortunately, they're not even printing it anymore. They're just electronically creating it. And we can just watch a little clip from 60 Minutes by Jerome Powell, the president of the Federal Reserve, where he talks about them digitally creating currency in this country. Here we go. Let's watch this clip.
You simply flooded the system with money.
Yes, we did. That's another way to think about it. We did.
Where does it come from? Do you just print it?
We print it digitally. So we as a central bank, we have the ability to create money digitally.
Okay, so joining me today is Mr. Cliff Poker with Flex Sport in Argentina. And Cliff, you have indicated to me that for the past 10 or 12 years, there's been some significant inflationary pressure, devaluation of the currency, however you want to look at it, in Argentina. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, so like you said, let's say the past 10 to 12 years, we started off, inflation really started to stand out when it started hitting, 15, 20, 25%. Right now, year over year, we're at somewhere just above 80%, and all the estimates look like we should be finishing up just over 100% for 2022.
A peso that was worth 1 peso January 1st of 2022 on December 31st of 2022 was worth 1/2 a peso.
Pretty much.
So you have been in business over a period of years, the last decade or so, and you have had to deal with this. So talk in brief, Cliff, about the strategies you use as a business owner to cope with high inflation in Argentina.
I want to say the biggest tool that we've always had, because although, we've been talking about the past 10 to 12 years or so, Argentina in the past 50 years, for example, has gone through even worse periods. So we're used to this for sure. The biggest tool that we've always had against inflation and against devaluation has always been to have a very generous stock of raw materials, of supplies, etc. All of the things needed in our business to manufacture, and then also for the installation business that we also run to install our projects. So we like to see our warehouse Absolutely full up to the brim of raw materials and of supplies. That's the biggest thing. Of course, it helps to have as little debt as possible. We keep our debt at zero. I know for many companies that's not an option, but always try to keep it really, really low. It kind of helps to keep everything sort of under your own control. When you own the materials already and you go and you sell a project, you're the boss. You're not subject, to any unexpected price increases from your suppliers. We don't sell a project and then start scratching our head. What are we going to do now? Whatever we sell, we can take it off the shelf and then we replace it, and like I said, we own it. We're in charge.
And so if we were talking about a gymnasium flooring company, what you're talking about is taking the profits, the excess profits from your company, and as opposed to holding cash, you are buying more hardwood floor, more finish, more nails, whatever it is you need to complete projects, and you are holding that product as opposed to holding cash within the company.
Absolutely. The cash is a hot potato. What we like to do as soon as our customer tosses it at us, we like to grab it and throw it straight at our suppliers and then let them figure it out. Nobody wants to be caught holding the hot potato. That's what cash is when you're in inflation. Your maple, the only way it's going to go is wherever the inflation takes it. So, if you buy it right off the bat and you have it, I say on your shelf, I know for many people, they don't have enough, warehouse space to do that, but figure something out with your supplier, pay in advance. God knows we've paid many invoices in advance to our different suppliers, and said, we'll figure out shipping and when we need it later, but take my money. I don't want it. And most of the time they're very happy to do so, and that's a way to sort of freeze the cost and get at least one problem that's related to inflation off your mind. So kind of what we do is, every month we take care of payroll, we take care of, expenses, electricity, things like that. If you had any debt, of course, any debt payments, and whatever's left over, of course, the owner will take whatever expenses, whatever cash they need out of the business, to take care of their personal expenses. But then whatever's left over, we're dumping it straight into supplies, into raw material, anything we can do to get cash off our hands.
Because you find that those supplies and those raw materials are going to go up in value, or actually what's happening is your cash is depreciating in value, but the point is you're holding that product as opposed to holding cash because the cash is devaluing.
Yeah, the way I think about it is, all of your raw materials, let's say your maple, that's going to go wherever inflation takes it. So let's say, your cost goes up by 10% over the year. Well, the price of maple is going to go up, hopefully no more than 10%. Likely it'll go up even a little bit more. So that's okay, because when it comes time to sell the project or to install the project, your sale price should have reflected that anyway. If inflation goes down, or you even have deflation and the cost of maple goes down, it's also not that big of a problem, because whatever money you make off a project where you install that maple, even though, it quotes less, the money you make from that project is going to go farther because everything else likely went down with it, and none of this is an exact science. I'm not an economist. I've just been going through this for a very long time. And my family even longer, we've been dealing with this for 50 years in our family business. So by all means, it's not an exact science. It's just us doing our best, and maybe sometimes it's overkill. If we tend to have in our warehouse anywhere between 9 and 18, hopefully sometimes even up to 24 months worth of stock of certain materials and supplies. It just keeps piling up. A couple of years ago, we had to purchase, the property that was next to our factory in order to build a warehouse there, and some people think we're absolutely nuts holding this much stock. Anybody who has any formal training in finance or economics or business administration would look at us and say, you're absolutely crazy with what you're doing. But it's our hedge, and it's what we need to sleep at night. And there's nothing better than getting a good night's sleep.
And your company has stayed in business for 50 years during some pretty volatile economic times down there.
We've gone through everything. We've gone through periods where the supermarkets wouldn't even bother printing out price tags just because, the prices would go up significantly, in the same day. In the afternoon, things were worth 20% more than they were worth in the morning. So we've been through it all, or most, and it's just what we need to do. And it's a huge advantage. You guys went through it in the States, during 2020, 2021, where it wasn't just the issue of prices, but also availability. And it even happened to me trying to get maple, on somewhat of a short notice. It was near impossible. So imagine not being exposed to inflation. Imagine not being exposed to shortages. You just pull the stuff off the shelf, you deliver it, and then you can start to worry about replacing your stock, but you're not delaying delivering projects to your customers.
Cliff, I see three things. Number one, I see you having a long-term vision for your company. Number two, you talk about keeping debt low. And number three, invest back into your company as much of the profit as you can in stock and supplies.
Absolutely.
Is that your economics management style in a nutshell?
Pretty much. It's our way to stay in business. It's our way that we survive. Down here we're exposed to a lot of variables, not just inflation. So it's the way we've managed it. And thankfully, and I hope none of our local competitors are watching, but not everyone else does this. So it's given us a whole series of advantages over our competition, which has not only helped us to stay in business, but to thrive despite, all of these difficulties.
Cliff Poker, I appreciate you a lot. I wish you the very best and thank you. And I'm sure there's a whole bunch of contractors in the United States would like to thank you as well, because your advice is hard won. And I think it's golden. Thank you, Cliff.
Thank you. Take care. Good luck to everybody watching. It's rough, but you'll get through it.
Have a nice day, Cliff.
You too. Bye-bye.
Cliff's company, they maintain very low debt. In fact, he says they have no debt at all because of these economic challenges that they face every day. When they have any extra capital within their business, they buy product that they will use within their business. And so they're using that product like maybe another company in the States would use cash. It's a resource to them, but their cash with the atrocious inflation rate is almost worthless to them. So they're using product and company product, raw materials that they're going to use as their resources for their company. I think these are things that we could all learn and perhaps we're going to need to implement, because in all likelihood, this little inflation bump isn't going to go away right away. It's going to be with us for a while, so we're going to have to look at strategies to survive this, whether this is something that lasts another year or 5 years or possibly even longer. It's going to be with us for a little bit because our currency has been seriously debased recently. For Western Sport Floors and Wyoming Wood Floors, this is Paul Nelson. You make it a great day.